Your breath bounces back at you from concrete and tile. The flashlight shakes in your hand, scattering a cone of dust through a ruined corridor that smells like wet paper and old metal. Something taps once, then again above the nurse's station. The guide whispers to kill the light. When you do, Waverly Hills swallows what's left of your voice. Far down the hall, a rectangle of moon gray glows through a broken window. The group waits, shoulders tight, while the building settles. Somewhere, a drip counts off seconds in a room you can't see. You start to think you hear footsteps that don't match your own, light and pacing, as if someone small is adjusting to your presence and choosing not to come closer. Tuberculosis built this place. By the 1920s, the disease had eaten into Kentucky families so deeply that isolation and air were the only defense medicine could reliably offer. Waverly Hills rose on a ridge outside Louisville with broad wings angled to catch the wind. Sanatorium porches sat open to the sky. Patients lay under blankets in winter, frost feathering bed rails, nurses tightening scarves as they checked pulses and trays. Inside, operating rooms stood ready for collapsed lungs and bleeding cavities. X-rays flickered. Surgeons tried procedures now locked in medical history, doing everything they could with what they had. Death was part of the routine. When it came, the body left through a long concrete incline cut into the hillside. Staff called it the service tunnel, built so deliveries could move in and out during rain and snow. People later called it something else. The slope is real, the drain grates are real, and the way sound flattens against the walls is real. Stand halfway down, and your voice feels borrowed from someone else. Even without stories, the tunnel tightens the throat. Antibiotics reached the region in the 1940s and changed the odds. Patient numbers fell. In 1961, the sanatorium closed. For a time, the campus reopened as a geriatric center. Another closure followed in the early 1980s after reports of neglect and budget failure. After that, the doors were locked and the windows lost their glass one pane at a time. Weather slipped in. So did spray paint, raccoons, and the kind of curiosity that tests fences. What built next wasn't medicine. It was reputation. Walkers began to report the same moments in the same places. In the fifth-floor ward, some felt a sudden pressure in the chest and a need to leave right then. No debate. In long corridors, people started a game guides now used to measure nerves, stand in a line with lights off, focus on the glow at the far end, and wait to see whether a shape cuts through it. On some nights, a figure seems to slide across the opening and vanish into the dark, as if pacing a doorway. On other nights, the only thing that moves is your own breath, when you realize how long you've been holding it. Security logs show doors opened when tours weren't scheduled. Window panes crack in summer heat and make a sound like a shout. On the first floor, a scuffed ball sometimes appears. Guests roll it and watch it wobble to a stop. Some swear it rolls back against the fall of the floor. Others say it never moves at all. Staff who spend the most hours here call it predictable unpredictability. They learn the building's drafts, its expansion pops, its animal noises. They still have stories they save for the walk back to the parking lot, when the lights of the city feel like a promise. Television crews amplified everything. Paranormal teams wired up night vision cameras, asked blunt questions into empty rooms, and waited. A few took home audio with whispers they couldn't source and footage where a shadow peeled off a wall and bled into a doorway. Skeptics walked the same ground and talked about pareidolia, perspective, and the brain's urge to complete patterns in low light. Both groups kept coming back. Tours filled. Waivers were signed. People lined up to see what would happen when the lights were gone and the building had the stage to itself. Owners stabilized the structure. Windows were patched, graffiti scrubbed. Small tours traced patient routes and paired the TB history with the reports modern visitors carry out. Footfalls near a locked roof door, a draft that moves opposite the weather, a figure shaped like a person, but thinner than a person, as if made of the space between things. Guides do not promise a ghost. They promise the chance to pay attention. On the solarium porches, the wind still threads through the broken screens. Guides describe how patients were wheeled out, even on snow days, faces turned toward a sun that did not show. The building was oriented for breeze and brightness. The proportions had a purpose you can feel in your bones when air passes clean through the ward from window to window. In the operating rooms, the tile shines back every stray beam. The fixtures are gone, but the outlines remain on the floor where tables once stood and drains once caught what had to be caught. You learn, in minutes, how closely architecture can tie itself to a single mission. Reports tend to repeat themselves, which is part of what makes them interesting. A woman on the third floor glimpsed in the corner of the eye. Footsteps crossing the roof when the door is locked. A child-sized shadow near the cafeteria. A name whispered that matches no one on the tour list. When a pattern of claims holds steady across years and across people who don't know each other, it becomes a kind of data, even if the interpretation stays contested. That's why skeptics come along too, to watch, to account for drafts and echoes, and to see if anything remains after you subtract everything you can explain. Waverly Hills holds two honest stories at once. One is a record that fits in binders, permits, floor plans, census counts, photographs of rows of beds facing the winter sun. It's the story of a hospital trying to keep people alive with the tools it had until better ones arrived. The other is a record no archive can close, thousands of private goodbyes layered into concrete and tile. Those goodbyes are why people whisper here without being told to. They are why a cold seam of air across the wrist feels personal. You don't have to believe in anything beyond physics to feel the weight of the past pressing in. Late in the night, you return to the corridor where you started. The guide asks for one last minute in the dark. Everyone obeys. The building settles. Something scuffs along the baseboard to your right. Small, singular, close. You keep your eyes on the gray window at the far end and try not to blink. 10 seconds pass. 15. A draft lifts across your knuckles. Your hand tightens around the light you promised not to use. When the minute ends, the guide says, "Thank you," and the whole group exhales as if a rope were cut. Morning shrinks everything. In daylight, Waverly looks like any closed institution mid-restoration. Brick, broken panes, scaffolding, a landmark propped up by local will and finances. You can read the history, review the photographs, stand at the lip of the service tunnel, and feel the temperature drop like a step into a cave. You can tell yourself you know what happened here and why the building stands the way it does. And you might still come back after dark, because the night turns attention into a kind of instrument, and this place knows how to play it. The pull is not complicated. Thousands arrived sick. Many died. The building outlasted them. Concrete and tile hold the trace of that passage the way a coat holds a smell after its owner is gone. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, walking these halls puts you in the path of real history and reported experience, side by side. That pairing is the engine of the legend. It doesn't shout. It waits. It hands you a corridor, a draft, a scuff in the dark, and lets you decide what you felt. Thank you for listening to The Lantern's Tale. Subscribe for more true stories, if you dare.